Welcome back to Unhoused and Unfiltered. I'm Nick Cook, the Director of Public Policy for the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness. And I wish we had my partner in crime, Sarah Rennie, here today, but we allowed her to go on vacation. She's enjoying some downtime. She's been out there a lot, especially with the COC NOFO, which we got some great news on. We'll talk about that later. But first, I want to remind you all to like and subscribe this podcast. Go to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, like and subscribe to Unhoused and Unfiltered, and become a member of MICA. We can't do this without your support. Go to myhomeless.org and become a member. But I do want to introduce my guest host here today. Amy Stephenson is the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness Director of Communications and the reason behind Sarah and I starting this podcast. Amy, welcome, and take a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to fill some very skilled shoes of Sarah, but glad she's getting a break, as Nick mentioned. My name is Amy Stephenson, and I'm the Director of Communications at MICA. I do the behind the scenes work in promoting the podcast. And I just want to thank, as part of my introduction, the over 1,000 folks that have viewed this podcast on YouTube and the almost 700 folks that have downloaded it from our various platforms. So that's a testament to Nick and Sarah and our various guests. So thank you for doing that. And I'm really proud and honored to be here today.
Yeah, we do have some great fans. You called us influencers the other day.
I did.
I don't know.
And I will continue to do so.
I don't know if we're quite the influencer level yet, but we do enjoy this. We enjoy the guests we've had so far. So, the first episode, Sarah and I kind of explained why we came to work for MICA. Amy, you have a very, very amazing background with your experience in communications and nonprofits. Why did you come to work for MICA?
Sure. I've been here this year, will be 5 years at MICA, and it's been one of my favorite jobs. I've worked internationally in other countries, in Europe and Mexico. I've worked for nonprofits, private sector. But I've always followed the adage that to whom much is given, much is expected. And I've been given a lot in my life in different ways. And at this stage of my career, I just really wanted to use what strong skills I knew I had to support incredible people like our CEO, Eric, who we'll hear from, for you, for Sarah. So that's why I'm here, is to take my marketing and messaging skills and really support the folks that are doing such incredible work statewide, which are my colleagues at MICA.
Well, thank you for joining MICA. We have a lot of fun with you, sometimes at your expense. But
I can take it, Nick.
But Sarah and I have really come to love doing this podcast, and really it was your leadership and your vision that kind of pushed us to do this, and it's been a lot of fun. But we also have a great leader. Eric Hufnagel, who is our Chief Executive Officer. He's been with MICA for a long time now. We'll let him explain how long he's been here. We have built a team in MICA that really wants to get the word out there and really talk about what we do on a daily basis. And without our Chief Executive Officer, we wouldn't be able to do that.
I would agree.
Eric has empowered us to kind of get that message out there and make connections to the community, raise awareness, fight against criminalization, and talk about the issues that we do on Unhoused and Unfiltered, so that people can understand what our unhoused community looks like.
Yeah, it's a real honor, and we'll get him on camera in a minute. But one of my favorite things about working at MICA is I do feel very empowered to get the messaging out. Eric trusts his staff, and this podcast is just one way in which we've tried something new with his support to elevate the voice of MICA. And he was completely in support of that. So with that, we could probably introduce Eric.
Eric,
welcome.
Welcome to Unhoused and Unfiltered. I know you are a huge fan of the podcast.
I am. I watch it repeatedly. There's certain favorite episodes, and I want to pull those out periodically when I'm not feeling so happy about myself and what's happening. So. Yes.
Yeah, he does pump up his own staff a little too much, but no. But Eric, thank you for coming on the podcast today. We've been wanting to get you on here, and this is a perfect opportunity. So why don't you give us a little bit about your background and why you came to MICA, and how long you've been here, and just where you see MICA going as the chief executive officer.
Yeah, thank you. It is good to be here. And I know, Amy, you're feeling like you're second fiddle. You're filling in here for some big shoes, but you're doing a terrific job, as you do with everything that you do on behalf of MICA. So, to answer that question, I have spent most of my career in nonprofit work and thinking in terms of who are the vulnerable people in our communities, who are the people who are in most need, who are the people that typically do not have folks advocating for them. And so spent a lot of time in mental health. And certainly in that experience, encountered a lot of issues that people faced with housing. And so there's a lot of, I guess, cross-sectionality with respect to a lot of folks who are served through the nonprofit world. So when this opportunity came along, I was really looking at how could we elevate the work being done through an organization that had been around for 20 years, and where can we make the most impact? And I felt this was a unique opportunity, certainly through the work that had already been done by the organization, but also thinking in terms of a specific program, the Michigan Statewide Homeless Management Information System, which is operated through MICA, which does provide a statewide data system where there are hundreds of agencies around the state who are providing data in real time about the clients that they are serving. And what that really did for me was create some excitement and thinking in terms of how can we use the data more effectively to tell the story, to make sure that the public really understood how many people were affected by homelessness and what did that look like? What were the demographics? It's really important to tell that story because quite often the general public doesn't have a real awareness of who is affected by homelessness because a lot of folks don't believe it exists in their own communities. So that was something that really grabbed me, the potential that there was for the organization and moving forward. So it was a no-brainer for me to want to join this organization and help it as it was expanding and really attacking the issue of homelessness in ways that it hadn't before.
And under your leadership and Jerry's, our data democratization team has really elevated that work in so many spaces, and they've done an amazing job. They just had their summit last week, and almost 400 people attended that. So that data focus under your leadership and Jerry's is definitely expanded. In your time at MICA, you've seen a lot of changes at the federal level, the state level, within agencies across Michigan. What would you say is the number one concern for the unhoused across Michigan today in 2026?
And that's really difficult because there are so many things that we are concerned about. I would say the number one at this point in time, if we're just taking a snapshot of today, it would be the impact of actions at the federal level and how those play out and really, I would say, undermine the work that has been done by so many individuals and organizations and communities around this state over so many years. And whether we're talking about cuts to resources that may have been available to help keep people housed. So we're talking about Medicaid cuts, for example. We do know that when we think in terms of people having a risk of becoming unhoused, there are a number of things that could trigger that instance of homelessness. And so just Medicaid, for example, not having the resources available that Medicaid was affording an individual may put them in a precarious position where they may not be able to effectively meet their needs and pay their bills. And so it undermines their ability to maintain housing, whether it be SNAP benefits or other benefits at the federal level that have been cut or restricted, individuals losing employment because of the loss of jobs caused by tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not just pointing out just a myriad of things that are taking place at the federal level that have that, what I would call trickle down effect, that what it ultimately does is affect people as individuals and can constrain their resources and otherwise make it difficult for them to keep their housing. So that in general is the largest concern, not just the loss of resources, but also, again, actions at the federal level through the executive branch and thinking in terms of how we are addressing the issue of homelessness across this country. What are the priorities with respect to programming, and a difference of opinion in many cases about what works and what doesn't work. And again, we have data, and I think that's where we're coming at this issue in a position of strength, and that we know what programs work. We have the data that shows the outcomes, and that's part of the HMIS system. For those who don't know that, it is a system that is required by HUD. That was something through congressional acts so that there would be a level of accountability. So agencies who receive funding from HUD are required to participate in HMIS. What that allows them to do is not only capture the information for their own programming to know what's happening, but also to look at their community and understand what's happening within their community. And then we can look at the state level. So we have all that data that we can look at that says, hey, this program is working. This percentage of people who are receiving funds in this program are able to become housed and remain housed. So we know what works based on what that data is. It's not just anecdotal. This is important for us to have in these conversations. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. And the concern that we have is this shift, moving away from the things that work, forcing communities to pursue programming that does not necessarily meet the standards of what we believe is the most effective use of the resources in our communities. Not to mention the fact that those resources are shrinking as well. The amount of funding through the federal government is also contracting at the same time. So not a simple answer. Sorry, I went on a little bit, but it just tells you there's a lot going on that's a concern to us.
And I'm glad that you specified MICA's role in providing that data to agencies, because it would be really a challenge for them to try to curate that data accurately and consistently, although we partner with them very closely to do so. MICA's kind of the foundation with that HMIS system to make sure they have the data to tell those stories as their funding is getting cut. Nick, do you mind talking a little bit more in addition to the data side and the
Yes.
federal, what else MICA does
Yeah.
in that area?
So Eric, we had Jerry on here a few weeks ago, and he talked about the data and the need for data, the ability to help shape the conversation with data. And you alluded to it of why you joined MICA. You saw this unique opportunity. We talked. Amy just mentioned about working with the local COCs to share that data to help make sure the data is accurate. What other role does MICA have when it comes to this? I mean, I know the advocacy piece. I talk about it all the time, but what else does MICA do to support service providers and the unhoused?
Well, we do have a wide array of things that we, over the years, have learned were needs. And so our goal as an organization was to identify those gaps or the areas where those who are doing the work can get assistance to help them do a better job and be more effective. I mean, ultimately, we want to be the conduit for the sharing of information that elevates the work that's being done at that local level. So one of the things that we do is pursue training and TA. And what I mean by that is, for example, with training, there are a lot of people who are doing work in the field. And as with so many other sectors, you have some transition, you have new people coming in, wanting to make sure that they have the information they need to do their work effectively and to learn about new ways of doing the work at the local level, et cetera. We want to be able to facilitate that and to bring that information to people so that, again, they can elevate the work they're doing. So we do have training on a wide array of topics, and we think in terms of what do communities want? What do agencies say they need? What do individual staff elevate as those gaps that they want to have assistance with? And so we focus on that so that folks can have more tools in their tool shed, and that they are the most recent and sharpened tools that they can use. And part of that that I'm very excited about is a larger program of training that provides really the basis for working in the homeless service delivery system. And it's something we call the Core Cert or Core Certification Program, which allows people to participate in training that has various elements that, again, we think are those core components. When we're looking at what skills and knowledge people need, we have a curriculum that's put together. Individuals participate in that training. There are quizzes for folks. We want to make sure that they're retaining the information that's being presented to them. Ultimately, if they complete all those courses, they get a certificate. So it is a certification program that's made available. So I think that does reflect people's commitment to actually gaining skills in the work they're doing. And I think it also provides the concrete proof that somebody has actually invested that time and has successfully completed that training. So that's an example. The training is an important piece, but also when we think about technical assistance, that can really vary. That can range from a community saying, well, hey, we're going through a process where we're looking at our plan to end homelessness, and we'd like to have somebody help facilitate a session for us to update our plan. Or it could be an agency that is looking at developing new programming. They want to have some input from us about what that can look like. It may be communities that want to understand more about advocacy and how they can get involved in that work and educating policymakers, et cetera. So we do a lot of things that are tied to what we hear agencies and community need, where there's some gaps where we feel that we can provide our extensive background, our experience from across all of our staff to be able to help support the work and, again, elevate the work that's being done. I keep using that word, but we want to help people do a better job in their communities and be more efficient and effective in eliminating homelessness, and or for those who are homeless, to make sure that they're getting the best services possible.
And Sarah's not here today, but she is our Director of Outreach and Engagement. And since I know I've been supporting her role in the last year, we've developed dedicated listservs to congregate folks of different backgrounds to provide that technical assistance. She's done presentations. We tag team with phone calls. I had a phone call this morning with the hospital, just providing some overviews that would normally go to her, but just providing that support, because I think folks in the field, they are doing a good job. They want to do a good job, but it's a big space out there of speaking to reporters, speaking to other folks, that we can kind of take that first line for them. And you guys as a team, and especially Sarah, spends a lot of time doing that for folks on the TA piece.
Well, and I know from just listening to what you all have planned, even some of this is mental health assistance for a lot of our first line workers. This work is challenging. It's not easy. They get very little pay. They're overworked. And so doing things like that, teaching about mental health, how to take care of yourself, I think it has been a great asset to some of these providers.
Yeah, so when Sarah's facilitating that, she always does make it a priority to hold space, that we recognize you're suffering out there too, trying to navigate all this, and not just here for the technical piece, but to provide that space of support. So I'm glad you brought that up. And if I could, Eric, just for a moment on the training side, I just wanted to share, because I don't think folks are always aware. I know you all out there get emails from me with my name on it for the training newsletter every month, but we do provide among 15 to 20 training sessions a year. And on average in 2025, let's say we've had about 50 folks on average attend those. So we train over 750 people a year across the state of Michigan. And these are folks that can stay at the convenience of their own desk. They can pick the topics that are most meaningful to them. We try to keep things either free or affordable so that we can also pay our instructors as we should. So that training provides a really large scope, whether it's the core certification or on-demand training, or even coming to you in your location. Our speakers are sometimes able to do that, or our staff. So Micah really does try to cover all the bases when it comes to training. And that also includes our YouTube channel. That has grown tremendously in the last couple months. So that is also where you can find some training content also.
Thanks. And Eric, we talk about joining Micah quite a bit. And I think you could probably expound on, why we need membership better than anybody. You've been here the longest. You understand the challenges that nonprofits run into. So could you just kind of give us, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And you keep alluding to how long I've been with the organization. I don't know if that's an attempt to make me feel old or useful. I have been around with the organization now 15 years. This was my anniversary month. So it's been an exciting 15 years. It's gone by quickly in many ways. It's gone by extremely slowly at the same time. But we've seen a lot of change take place with this organization with respect to our ability to do things. As I said earlier, one of the things that excited me about the organization was that the significant opportunities that presented themselves, that there were many ways this organization could elevate its work, and again, then elevate the work being done at the local level. So when I think in terms of the value that we were bringing as an organization, I was looking then at our membership and thinking in terms of, well, back 15 years ago, we ended up having a lot of folks who were getting an awful lot of benefit from our organization, but it didn't necessarily translate into that commitment of being a member. And I think that's largely because the organization had not been as effective in really reaching out to people about membership and encouraging them to be members. Because when the organization started, as so many organizations do, it was volunteer run. For many years, it was individuals who were doing the work in the field who were rolling up their sleeves and also doing this work on the side with respect to the creation, support, and management of the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness. And at that time, you did have significant participation in a formal way where there was that buy-in from those organizations and individuals around the state who were participating in this group. And so you did have more memberships, more financial support coming in from those organizations and individuals. And that changed a little bit over time as we became a little bit more professionalized and had some additional resources coming in. There wasn't as much effort invested into cultivating membership. And so we've been working on that as an area that we feel is important for a number of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, when you think in terms of membership, you're thinking about the skin in the game, the importance of organizations and individuals saying, hey, this is a cause that I believe in and getting a value from it. We should be furthering the work through a paid membership, right? So we want to be able to show that we have a wide range of support. That adds to our credibility, quite honestly, when we think in terms of the number of organizations who formally have memberships in the organization. The other thing, which is a secondary reason, but it's just as important in many ways, is that it does generate revenue for this organization to be able to sustain the programs and develop new programs that we need to be bringing to people, particularly in these very difficult times. As an organization, we're trying to help individual organizations and communities navigate some of the buffoonery that takes place, that is in addition to the normal obstacles and challenges that organizations face with respect to this work, but some of those external things that are happening that are causing organizations to refocus and or be distracted from the work they're doing and how they're doing it, et cetera. It's even more important for us to be there to help walk people through this process, right? To be a support for the work that's being done by agencies and communities. And so that takes bandwidth to be able to do that. To do the training takes bandwidth. To be able to do the advocacy work takes bandwidth. To be able to provide some peer support and bring COCs together to talk about some of the ongoing issues and to help each other out by sharing what's worked or what hasn't worked, that takes bandwidth. Nothing it comes for free in that sense, right? It takes people's effort to make that happen. And so for us as an organization, as we think in terms of the really tremendous growth we've had with respect to the output and the work we're doing and the benefits we're providing to organizations and communities around the state, it's really important for those communities, those agencies to be making that commitment to put skin in the game and to say, yeah, this is valuable. I'm getting a lot out of this, and I want to continue to get a lot out of this. And to do that, I should be giving back a little bit and being a part of the work. It's not just about a membership and making a payment. It's about saying, hey, I'm proud to be a part of the coalition against homelessness. It's a coalition of people doing the work. We're doing this collectively. We want to have not only the buy-in through the membership, but we want to have those individuals feeling like they are a part of this team and are engaged as a volunteer and or otherwise are a party to the work that we are doing collectively.
And that is a great point, Eric. It is a coalition. You and I have had this conversation many times, that we are a voice for the homeless. We work with them. We want to make sure that their perspective and their voice is raised when elected officials throughout the state are making decisions and at the federal level. So there's about 35,000 every year in the state of Michigan that we talk about. That is a large number. But how many members does MICA really have? I mean, what are we talking about? What kind of memberships are there?
Sure.
Who really is helping shape the conversation across the state?
Yeah, right now as an organization, we have about 73 formal paid members. We've got about 40 organizational members, which is terrific. We have about 33 additional individual memberships. So, is that enough? No, it's never enough. We want to have more people who feel empowered by the work we're doing and want to join into the organization and be a part of it, not only with a financial contribution, but also to then want to be a party to the work that's being done collectively. So the memberships, when we think in terms of memberships, we look at COCs. So we do have a COC category as membership. We do have individual organizations with a sliding fee scale, so to speak, for membership, and then individual membership. But we also have like an unbenefited membership, which I really encourage any organization who may want to get dip their toes into things. It's just a modest amount. It's a $200 donation just to be affiliated with this organization. So when we think in terms of what organizations are getting for the work that we're doing, the amount that they would be committing as far as dues to be a part of this organization are very modest. And I will say that till the day I die, that we're bringing in a very immense amount of value to folks. And sometimes those are things that can't be quantified. When we think in terms of the advocacy and legislation that may be preventing, for example, discrimination based on the source of income, which provides obstacles for people to get housing. That's something that we took the lead on as an organization. Hard to quantify that. We can't say how many people in retrospect have actually accessed housing that otherwise couldn't access housing before, but we know that that's true, right? So there are a lot of things that we do as an organization that are hard to put numbers to and to show that X number of widgets were created, et cetera, et cetera. But the value is there. It's always been there. So we're really excited about everything that we're able to do. And so pleased to be able to see how individual staff members and organizations and COCs are improving the work that they're doing, and that they're looking at what we do as something that benefits them and that they want to continue supporting.
And if I may, Eric, just to summarize, for the folks listening out there, you can join as an overall COC, you can join as an agency, but if you're listening to this and you just stumbled upon this podcast, because I've been marketing it so well and you found it very easily, means I'm doing my job, but you just look at the imagery and optics of homelessness, or you hear what's happening at the federal level and you feel hopeless, this is a way you can contribute to really make macro change across the state and affect your fellow citizens, is to join as an individual. And I don't think folks know often enough that they can do that. Even if you work for an agency, but your agency's not a member, you absolutely can. And it's very easy to do so if you go to our website. It's www.mihomeless.org, and it'll be down at the bottom if Zach can put that there. It'll give you just a really simple couple of steps to join MICA, and we have a great graphic that we'll throw up as well to show you all of those 73 members and agencies that give you the breadth across the state of Michigan who have joined.
You know, Amy, you bring up becoming a member. We do things like the coalition to expand housing access, uh, Bridges to Belonging, which is our cross-sectional, multidisciplinary group that talks about issues of the unhoused or those that are precariously housed. The Legislative Action Committee, the COC meetings that we've had dealing with the NOFO, the FY25 NOFO lawsuit where we've signed on as an interested party, the FY26 NOFO where there was another lawsuit and we provided technical assistance to the COCs. All that is things that we do, that we need your support. And Eric, thank you for your leadership on this, and thank you for coming in today and talking through this. If you had one thing to leave our listeners, what is the one thought you'd want to leave with them?
Get involved. Okay, this is the time, as I said before, there's some very rough waters that we are in when we think in terms of affecting change with respect to homelessness, helping people who are homeless. We are anticipating an influx as we're currently seeing the trend of new people becoming homeless. And so right now, more than ever, we need to have you involved, whether it's a membership or whether or not you want to volunteer to be involved in the work that we're doing. And there are many ways for people to do that, or whether it is simply educating the public and being an advocate, if you will, with respect to policymakers in your own community and or getting engaged as an advocate at the state level as well. You need to roll up your sleeves. We need to do this together because I'm very, very concerned about what the future holds based on what's been happening at the federal level and just looking at the numbers currently and what the trends are. We are really going to be encountering homelessness at a level that we haven't seen in a long time. And we need to get ahead of it as much as we can and to reduce or mitigate the impending output, if you will, from the, again, buffoonery that is surrounding us. So please get involved.
Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you for coming on today. That's the Chief Executive Officer for the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness, Eric Hufnagel. Really appreciate him being on today. And Amy, you've worked in this field for a while now. And what value do you see MICA bringing on a daily basis?
The value I see is I'm just like the listeners and viewers out there. I look around, I watch the news, I see what's happening from Eric's point at the federal level. And it's really easy to feel hopeless about what's happening. And where I have the faith and belief in organizations like MICA is that we can't give up hope. And how you can support these efforts to help the people who are going to be on the rise with homelessness is to donate to organizations like MICA. And that's where I have hope, is supporting MICA, not just working here, but supporting financially the work we're doing, because I do see the ripple effect. Friday's a perfect example, not to get into the weeds. We'll wait till Sarah gets back because she's the lawyer, but the HUD COC NOFO announcement on Friday, that is a tangible piece. We were part of that legislation, and our paying members help support the legal work that we did towards that effort with the legislation. So I just feel it's really easy to give up hope, just like anybody else, but donating to organizations and coalitions like MICA, they really do have an impact, and they won't have an impact if we don't have financial support. And as Eric said, you put some skin in the game monetarily.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great thing to talk about. I mean, I just think about since the year I've been here, the things that we've seen coming down from the federal government, from the state government, from the local governments on criminalization of homelessness, on cutting of funding, removal of programs that we know that work, uh, othering. And if we didn't have Micah here to actually talk about this, or our partners in the community to talk and echo this message, I think it would be a lot tougher. Things like the FY25 NOFO lawsuit that we signed on party to, or the support that we gave to the FY26 NOFO lawsuit through our national partners, National Low Income Housing Coalition, the National Alliance to End Homelessness. We wouldn't be that voice for Michigan. Do we need millions of dollars? I think any organization would love to have millions of
Yes,
dollars.
we do. Join Micah today.
But having an engaged membership that Micah speaks to their values, I think it is helps us when we come into the room and says, we speak on behalf of the 35,000 unhoused in the Michigan, and 300 service providers throughout the state of Michigan, and 10,000 members that believe ending homelessness is the right thing to do. I think that's where we want to go.
I agree completely. And I do agree that voice wouldn't be there. Our agency partners are our core supporters and partners. But I also remember they're busy running agencies. And so they support us tremendously, but don't always have the capacity to get into the rooms that you do, or Sarah or Eric. And so if we weren't here leading that with their absolute support and help and in participation, it would be a lot quieter. They're busy trying to find people homes. And so I just am grateful for all the work that they do. But without our role, it would just make their jobs 100 times tougher.
Yeah, that's one thing. My job as public policy director, I do a lot of the advocacy and lobbying to both the state legislature and Congress, and I'm amazed every time I go in a room with one of our service providers, one of our COC members, on just how much they have on their plate. So when I get frustrated and be like, oh, why are they not responding? Why? They have 30,000 things on their plate.
Correct.
And for us to be able to do the things like make those connections with members of Congress, to do the groundwork, to share their stories out with the community, it is great. And I really think for every member we have out there from a COC or a service provider, it would be great to have 10 or 15 individual members.
I agree. Because they're out there and they care about ending homelessness. It's them having that avenue to know how to get to us, join, and give us their financial support to make that happen.
Yeah. And to listen to this podcast.
Of course.
That is really, it's been fun to do this podcast and to get that message out there, and to talk about issues. To have some really pointed conversations. We've had a couple on criminalization. We had Dr. Lynn Callow from Western Michigan come in and talk about kind of the overall, what is driving homelessness, this loss of community, and having service providers like Khadijah Erickson and Lisa Reinecke come in, talk about what they're seeing, boots on the ground, has just been fascinating.
Yeah, we try to put our money where our mouth is on elevating those voices, and this podcast certainly aims to do that, and we couldn't do it without all of our guests. And we also couldn't do it without you sharing it. So if there's a hot topic, if you go to our website, if you go to the podcast website, share these episodes. So when you hear friends or family or somebody say, well, people on the street, they just don't want to work, or they don't, the narrative that's out there, share an episode. They're short, the experts are there speaking to it, and a lot of folks enjoy listening to podcast content. This is a good way. Folks who don't think there's rural homelessness, share the one that Lisa Reineke did. Hear from an expert that, in fact, when you drive up north and think there isn't, there in fact is.
Yeah.
So definitely continue to share our podcast as you're listening.
You know, even I think about the youth homelessness, the podcast we did on that, you know, to understand a young person that has been homeless, trying to go to school, trying to just make it through the day. Like it's going to get worse before it gets better, as Eric said, you know, but we need it takes a village, right? And, you know, it's just been, a lot going on this year. And, you know, I really feel that we've elevated the message across the board. You know, and I really think there's more to be done.
I would agree. I would agree. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, so what do you think? Yeah, you're going to come back and host
It was
Unhoused
fun.
and Unfiltered?
It was fun. As I said, Sarah is a very skilled shoes to fill, so I was honored to be here, but I enjoyed it. I'm a huge podcast consumer, so it was really fun to be on this side of it. So yeah, it was an honor to be here, and it motivates me more to even get more of the word out for folks to listen and view our podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. You know, just for all the listeners out there, I do want to bring up one thing. The FY26 NOFO lawsuit did go through. We did prevail. Our national partners, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, National Alliance to End Homelessness, prevailed in that lawsuit. But there's more to follow.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more advocacy that's going to be coming out of that. We're kind of trying to see where the dust settles. So I want everybody to like and subscribe our podcast because we have many more podcasts to come. We're going to be talking about things like the FY26 NOFO. You know, what happens when the state government changes out at the beginning of the new year. We're going to have a new governor, new secretary of state, new attorney general, a new legislature. We're going to have a new member of Congress with a new U.S. senator. So there's just so much going on that we have a whole lot to talk about as we go forward. But we can only do this if you like, subscribe, and share. You know, if you want to become a member, go to myhomeless.org.
mihomeless.org. www.mihomeless.org. And if you have a topic that you haven't seen yet on our podcast and you think it's important, also email me. My email will be down at the bottom, but let me know because I curate all those as well. And we want to serve our listeners and our viewers of what questions and issues or guests that you may like to see as well. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week. This is Nick Cook, Director of Public Policy for Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness. Thank you for listening to Unhoused and Unfiltered.
Thanks, everyone.